Hey there, welcome to another episode of Fans in Motion, the ultimate Night Ranger podcast. Joining me like he does every week, relatively sober he is, I'm pretty sure today, my buddy, my partner in crime, my inspiration, Mr. Dave Florida Man Nadelman. And joining us now, sometimes I point and it doesn't actually the way that shows up on the screen, but I'm pretty sure he's right down, like right there. It's my buddy, longtime buddy from 2 weeks ago, Mr. Rick Lathrop. Rick, are you keeping
Hello.
warm up there? And where are you at? Upstate
Well,
New York or something?
I am in the Finger Lakes region of New York and I'm freezing my butt off. It's barely cracking 10 degrees these days here and
I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. That makes
yeah,
no sense to
well,
me.
yeah. Well, send a box full of that Florida air up for me, will you?
Will do.
That'd be nice. Yeah, it's brutal here and it's going to stay this way for who knows how long. It might be this way forever.
Hopefully not. Now,
Hopefully not. Yeah.
for so Rick and I met a few weeks ago. Rick does, we're going to get into this conversation, but he does some of the merch he does the merch for Night Ranger, Sammy Hagar. He's done merch in the past for REO. He's still doing it for Kevin Cronin. He's got one of the biggest tours this summer he just got. We'll talk about that. So if you ever wanted to know about rock and roll merch, this is your guy. And rock and roll merch, I mean, come on. All of us people that watch us, what's the thing we love going to? That merch table and spending
That's
our
right.
hard-earned money.
And my family thanks you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's usually when I go up there, I'm like, you know what? I don't need these shirts. I got three of them, but you know what? I want to make sure Rick eats this week. So give me
No,
two of
thank you.
those.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
And we're going to get into, on the Fans of Motion page, there's always people like, well, I wish they would do this, and I wish they would do this, and we're going to talk about that and say, well, maybe that, we would do that, or here's the reasons why that's not economically feasible.
Mhm.
But Rick, where did everything kick off for you, man? Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in northern Pennsylvania, actually. I live here in Elmira, New York, which is in the southern Finger Lakes region of New York, about 20 miles from where I actually grew up in Pennsylvania. Um, I've lived here in the same house for the past 40 years with my beautiful wife. Um, I started doing national acts about the time I met her in 1985. And it's been a heavy slog ever since. I've been able to keep myself employed, raise a big family. I've got five children. I've got 12 grandchildren. Um, we lead a beautiful life up here in upstate New York. This time of year, it's not so cool, but in the summer, there's no better place on earth. And I've been around the earth. This is it for me. I'll never move. It's just wonderful here. And a bunch of my kids and my grandkids still live here as well, so I could never move away from them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I started out always wanted to be a rock and roll roadie. I started out trying to be a musician. Just realized early on that I wasn't going to be able to cut it as a musician. I hung around a bunch of really good musicians, and I kind of ended up just carrying their gear for them and then learning how to set up gear. I was a theater major in college. I got into stagecraft, lighting, and all the behind the scenes stuff, and that's kind of how it morphed into being a roadie. And I've been on and off for all my life, basically been a roadie. I had a couple of stints, but I found out it
mhm.
wasn't for me. And I've reached my ripe old age, and I'll be able to retire from this business, and it's a good deal. It's a really cool deal.
What was in high school Rick's rock and roll vinyl collection?
Oh, I've always been a bit of a hard rock fan. I had every Zeppelin album. I had every Alice Cooper album. I was a big, huge Mott the Hoople fan.
Yeah.
Um, when it came time to for when I got a little older, I started getting into a little bit of thrash metal, and my kids are a bunch of my kids love thrash metal. And then I ended up working for a pretty big thrash band from Jersey, and their management actually managed a couple of hair bands. And when hair bands started coming out and knocked disco off its ass, we I actually got to move over from the thrash metal into the hair bands, and that turned me on to to much bigger tours, and it's been steady growth from there.
What?
I took a few years off and did auto racing as well. I'm a big auto racing fan, and I was a merch guy for the Champ Car World Series and IndyCar Series for a little bit. But yeah, rock and roll's always been my favorite. But yeah, hard rock stuff, Jethro Tull,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff.
W-
Big, huge Zeppelin fan. I just absolutely love
Yeah,
Zeppelin.
we just self-promote the podcast. We had Ron Nevison on a few weeks ago, who
A little bit of a heavyweight.
yeah,
That
Yeah.
must have been a good chat.
physical
Come on.
graffiti. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just like a lot of you guys, you all got these great rock and roll stories, man. And
Oh my
that's
God. Yeah. I
uh
mean, if I could have been in the same room where they were doing physical graffiti, I've listened to physical graffiti thousands and thousands and thousands of times.
yeah.
And I've done such cool stuff while listening to it that it all back to me. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm a big, big, huge fan of Ron Nevison. He's
he
shit.
he was the physical graffiti story was he was working on that and they only had so many t days and he had to tell them, I gotta go meet Pete Townsend and work on Quadrophenia, that album and
Yeah, huge,
yeah,
huge, huge
yeah,
fan as well. I
you
had
know,
Quadrophenia and
yeah,
Tommy, and I just, yeah.
yeah, it's just like, you
I
know,
guess your part is you're telling, hey, I got to tell Led Zeppelin, I got to
yeah,
go because
Yeah, how about
I
yeah,
that?
got to
Yeah,
meet up with the Who.
yeah.
he's like, I think I'm the only person to ever quit Led Zeppelin, but
I bet. I bet. I
what was
can't believe
your
Peter Grant didn't break his knees.
what was uh what was the first concert you ever saw?
First show I ever went to, I went to some smaller shows around my local area. I used to sneak into a little bar called the Paddock Room in Waverly, New York, and I was lucky enough to see a band called Elf there.
Yeah, all right.
Elf was Dio's first band. Well, his first band was Ronnie and the Prophets, but Elf was his
Hmm.
first big band. And I used to the guy that owned it, I knew his daughter, so I could kind of sneak in, and then I'd sit side stage and watch Dio and Elf play, and that's what really kind of piqued my appetite.
Hmm.
It made me want to be in the business, and I was able to convince. I was a huge Alice Cooper fan as well at the same time. Had every Alice Cooper record, and they were playing at the Syracuse War Memorial. My mom said she would take us, but she would have to go with us. So it was worth it to me. So we bought tickets. I think the tickets were five and a quarter, and I got to see ZZ Top right after Tres Hombres was released. So I got to if the War Memorial. There's a bunch of war memorials up here in upstate New York. They're
Yeah.
all kind of the same. They've got a proscenium, a proper proscenium, and a big curtain. So my first experience at a big rock show was I'm sitting there with my mom and my brother and a couple of our friends, and the house lights go down, and then there's a big curtain up, and then there's a stack of Marshalls on either side and this little drum kit, and the ZZ Top guys walk out. And they just look at one another and rip into Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers at about 120 dB. And I just went, what is this? And I got to see ZZ Top, my very first big concert experience. And they did their 40 minutes, and they went off. They pulled their gear off, took about 2 minutes, and then the curtain rises, and it's Alice Cooper, the Billion Dollar Babies tour. They did a Christmas run, and that was the last of the Billion Dollar Babies tour. And I got to see one of the last shows there. And actually, I've got a buddy who's a bootleg tape guy. He was able to actually find that show somehow.
Mm.
and I have a copy of that show on cassette. That very show that my brother and my mom and I went
Yeah.
to. And yeah, we were yeah, that
Uh,
That's an epic first show.
that's an
That would
yeah.
be
epic
an
first
epic.
show. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, it was the original Alice Cooper band, still a huge fan of them.
Mm.
And it's yeah, that I got lucky. I did see Alice later on after the band broke up, and he actually Alice got I don't know if you remember, but he got for the Welcome to My Nightmare album, he got everybody out of Lou Reed's band. So it was the Lou Reed Rock and Roll Animals band, Prakash John and Dick Wagner and Steve
Mm.
Hunter, bunch of really, really good, great players. And I got to see them uh, later on, a couple of years later. But yeah, that just got me wanting to. I just devoted all of my time and energy to getting just to see shows. And
Mm.
I mean, I saw Rush 20 times. I saw Blue Oyster Cult used to be one of my all-time favorites. I saw them live 15, 20
Mm.
times. Yeah, I when I grew up, it was just a really good time to grow up. I
Yeah.
mean, there was so many great bands, and they all had to tour
Mm.
where they made their money, and the record companies were behind them, and they were big, huge tours. So it was, yeah, that kind of when I decided what I wanted to do with my life, that was my aim, is to get
Mm.
on the tours like that and enjoy life. And I've been able to do that. Lucky me.
While you were, this young kid, do you remember your first piece of rock merch that you bought?
Actually, I did. I took my brother was an artist. We used to make our own t-shirts,
Mm.
and he made some really cool Zeppelin shirts for us with this Artex glittery kind of stuff. So we would see him in Cream magazine, or we would see him in Circus magazine. We would see pictures that the rock stars were wearing, or pictures of the shirts the rock stars were wearing, and he would duplicate those. And my Zoso shirt that he made for me, I actually fought my way to the front of the Kiss before the first live album. It was actually the tour that the first live album was recorded on. I fought my way to the front of the stage. My brother and I, side by each, and we got right up. That's back before they had seats on the floor. You
Mm.
just fought your way to the front, and we got right on the barricade, right in front of Gene, and got spit, blood
Hmm.
spit all over our shirts. We had those shirts for years and years and years. First piece that I ever actually bought, I think, was probably at a Kiss show. I used to
Mm.
go to as many Kiss shows as I possibly could.
Yeah.
I used to have a bunch of Kiss stuff. But yeah, I've always been interested in the merchandise design aspects of the
Mm.
business.
Now,
That just I got lucky when my job morphed into being a merch guy.
mm.
I had pretty good background. So
So, when you got into the business, I mean, was it like lighting? I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I started out as a lighting guy. When I went to college, I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to be a tech person.
Hmm.
I took some stage lighting classes and really fell in love with it. I love mixing color in the air. I love big, huge fan of the lights. So yeah, I was a light guy, stage manager guy. I got some big tours where I was the lighting guy for an opening acts, and opening act lighting guys have lots of time on their hands.
Hmm.
So I saw the merch guys were always having the most fun of anybody, and I started hanging out with them. And they asked me to come vend a couple shows with them, and I did, and had kind of a knack for it. So that kind of then I started selling myself as a lighting guy slash merch guy, and I got a lot of work that way. I did a band called White Lion for about 2 years.
Yeah.
That was the same management company as Overkill. I did them for a couple of years as their lighting guy as well, and their merch guy. Worked with
When you're saying merch, you mean you were vending. You were vending. You were the merch vendor. You
No,
were selling.
I was actually the merch. Well, with bigger tours, I don't actually have to sell the t-shirts to people. I just have to check them into the building. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I was the guy that took the merch to the building, counted it all in, checked it all out, grabbed the money, and left. So that's kind of how that worked out.
On
Um,
before you get too far, I want to go back to the lighting gig. Um, you said you kind of got on some big tours. What was the first tour you did where, okay, this is different and bigger than I've ever done before? What was that
Well,
first
I
one?
did, like I was telling you about Overkill,
Yeah.
at one point. Overkill, before their Field of Fire record, they had contracted with Slayer to do the Slayer Rain and Blood tour, and that's the very first big tour I went on was Overkill and Slayer, and that was, man, it was
See,
like a
that's
eight-month tour. It was brutal, and they play. You've
it,
seen how metal bands play.
yeah.
They play every night.
Hmm.
They'll have one day off in 3 weeks, and it's crazy. But yeah, it was Slayer, and then Megadeth. They opened for Megadeth on the Peace Cells tour.
Hmm.
And then some of the bigger tours that morphed into, I started working for White Lion, and they did open for Aerosmith on the Permanent Vacation tour. It was Guns N' Roses opened the first half, White Lion opened the second half. Um, they opened for Kiss 3 times.
Hmm.
They did the AC/DC Blow Up Your Video tour, and I was lighting guy on all of those. So when you're a lighting guy for an opening act, it's really, really simple. I mean, you
Hmm.
don't really touch the rig. You're able to, maybe put out some floor cans and focus those. So,
Hmm.
like I was saying before, it was just a lot of time on my hands. So,
I would probably get yelled at if I didn't ask you to share some thoughts from a White Lion. Give me, tell me
I
some
just,
stories
I
about
just,
White Lion.
I just talked to Tramp not long ago, actually.
Hmm.
He stays in touch. He's a really, really good guy. He's Danish. I've got a bunch of Danish friends. Um, But Tramp, it's Tramp's band, but Vito Bratta actually wrote all the music.
Hmm.
So Vito decided he had had enough. He bought his Lamborghini, bought his parents' house, and he didn't care about touring anymore. He just doesn't, he thought, I've done this and I don't want to do it anymore. So that kind of broke the band up.
Hmm.
Tramp went back to Denmark. And then he went to Japan with his wife Fleur, and they started a band called Human something. What was it? I don't know. But
Hmm.
but he did that, and then Tramp is now touring, and he does a little acoustic White Lion thing, and it's actually a really good product.
Hmm.
He does a really good job. Just him and a guy, and they travel around in a Sprinter van, and they do his thing. But yeah, White Lion was when I first started working for him, it was a band and crew on the same bus, that type of deal.
Hmm.
And we all traveled together. We went around the world once together.
Hmm.
They got real big real quick,
Hmm.
and then just quickly got irrelevant. I mean,
Yeah.
once grunge hit,
Yeah.
uh,
It's.
They were done. Yeah.
yeah, all
Mm,
those bands kind of. I mean, Night Ranger's lucky they've been able to survive that, but a lot of those bands just went in the tank.
mm.
They just there was no place for them to play anymore.
Well, I was, in the Night Ranger world and talking about that era, I always say, you know, grunge, obviously was the final nail, but a lot of those bands like Night Ranger, REO, Survivor, Loverboy, they were kind of already getting pushed out even before grunge. Bon Jovi's
Yeah,
and the Motley Crues. I mean, if you look at Night Ranger, REO, like I said, Survivor, Loverboy, all those records and tours weren't doing as well in
yeah,
88, 89. So,
yeah,
um, you know, uh, you know, grunge, they were already a little bit on life support, and
yeah.
grunge killed
That just
everything.
kind of kicked them into the
Eh,
grave. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's unfortunate.
Mm.
Although there's so many great players that you'll see them out now with all kinds of different bands. I mean,
Mm.
I see guys that I know played bass for Styx, and I
Mm.
know
Yep.
played bass for all the different
Mm.
bands, and they're playing bass now and
Yeah.
they're making a living. So,
Yep.
um, the good news is there were a lot of good players that came out of it. The bad news is the record companies just stopped supporting it,
Hmm.
and that was the last straw. Grunge they didn't care that much about tour support. They just went out and did shows, and it was just a whole different animal. So
So you were doing with White Lion, you had positioned yourself as lighting and merch. Um, Before grunge hit, what other acts were you doing up to that point? You mentioned like, the Overkill
yeah,
and White
yeah,
Lion.
yeah. Well, I was living in upstate New York. If I lived in New York City, I could have worked a lot more,
Hmm.
obviously. But I had a life here, and I had a beautiful wife, and I have a really nice house that I like. So I was never willing to move to New York City. So I constantly was hustling for gigs. Overkill kept me employed for a really long time. And then it's the same management company, Loud and Proud Management, that managed White Lion,
Hmm.
like Keto, and there's a
Yeah.
few other hair bands that they did. Um, so they Overkill was it for a while. Then once I got with White Lion, that opened up opportunity. I ended up doing Trickster for about 2 years, a hair
Okay.
band
Yep.
Trickster,
Yep.
and they're actually out doing shows
Yeah.
again. Steve Brown is tremendous talent.
Hmm.
That was his band, and he fills in for he filled in for Vivian Campbell on
Yeah.
Lathrop for almost 2 years. I mean, he's a tremendous player and a really really good guy. He keeps in touch
Hmm.
occasionally. I hear from him. But yeah, Trickster was a big one. Then when I started doing merch full time, I was out with a bunch of people. Meat Puppets. I did Meat Puppets for a while. They were
Hmm.
a blast. Did a Stone Temple Pilots, the plush tour. Um, yeah, I did I've got all my laminates
And is
Yeah.
now.
that merch and lighting or a combination?
That was a combo. It was a
Hmm.
combination. That was how I was able to sell myself and get a decent wage out of it. But yeah, once I decided to go merch full time, um, then I started doing much bigger acts. I did my first big tour with Night Ranger or sorry, with Nice Man Merchandising, which is a big merch company from Minneapolis. I did for they did White Lion as well, but then I did Skid Row for them. And they liked the way I worked, so then they put me on the Van Halen Balance tour. I did the whole Balance tour. Um, and then it was off to the races. Once
Hmm.
you start working for a merch company, you pretty much just go where they tell you. I did the REM Monster tour, the whole thing. Yeah, just
So,
tons of different bands for the
cou-
company.
couple questions here. One, so when grunge hit, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't quite impact you like it did the musicians. You
No,
went on,
no,
you
no.
went on to that genre of music,
I did.
puppets.
Well, at that time, I had made the move to merch full time, pretty much.
Mhm.
You know, mid '90s. So I was able to keep working because Nice Man had a whole bunch of grunge artists. So I got to go out and do, grunge shows, and I did Henry Rollins for a while. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just an eclectic group that Nice Man had, and that company was sold to Giant Merchandise, which was around till not
Yeah,
too
I,
awful long ago.
I
They
can
got bought up by
remember their.
Sony.
Okay, yeah.
Then once Sony Signatures went belly up, Live Nation picked them up.
So,
So now there's only a couple of merch companies that could actually afford me and keep me working.
mhm.
And I don't play well with others like that. I'd rather do my own thing. I hate having to run everything that I need to do by 15 people and then the band.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, the model I'm working on now is essentially in-house programs that I deal with. Um, that's how I do Sammy. That's how I do Night Ranger. That's how I do Loverboy. And then I do this band Tower of Power. I do them remotely as well. They play,
Mhm.
it's an old soul band, so they do a lot of jazz clubs and stuff. But
You
yeah, I mean,
you mentioned Stone Temple Pilots. What tour was that you
that
did?
was the Plush tour. Um,
Okay.
you know,
Um, and that would have been 92, 93, somewhere in there.
93, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, when so you were talking about Nice Man Productions. What was
Nice
the
man merchandising. Yeah.
merchandising? So when they hire you, like so they, I'm gonna what I think, and then you can correct me. So you got this merchandising company, they hire you, bands hire them, and then they
Yeah.
assign you to the group to,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What happens most of the time is um, these merch companies have a bunch of bands on their roster, and they're their merch company. They're the band's merch company. So when I was working for a merch company, I wouldn't mind taking a smaller band because I knew that once I got on the road with them, I could say, "Hey, you know what? I'm a lighting guy too." And a lot of smaller bands that are opening for big bands don't really carry an LD because LDs are expensive. So that's kind of how I got to do both. I did it for a good long while until the bands got so big that merch becomes a full-time job when you're doing big numbers. So uh, the stage I'm in now, it'd be difficult for me to be a lighting guy as well as a merch guy because there's just not enough hours in the day.
Mhm.
You know, LDs LDs, not so much LDs, but electricians and lighting people are the first ones in the building every day. They're figuring out where the points need to be, and they're rigging their rigs, and they're the last people out every night. So in the middle of that, I would have to do merch, and it became
Mhm.
brutal. So I pretty much just concentrate on merch these days. It seems to pay the bills, and
Mhm.
I take it easy.
So you're with Nice Man, um, merchandise. Where does the story begin when you kind of branch out on your own and become your own boss?
Well, I did, like I was saying earlier, I did a auto racing thing. I
Hmm.
was, and that was a Nice Man account first. Nice Man used to have they'd have a little conference call at the beginning of the year where all the road guys would get on the phone, and then they would try to divvy up the tours. They knew what tours they had going, and I was on the call, and they said, "Who knows anything about auto racing?" I said, well, I've been a huge IndyCar fan and open wheel racing fan all my life. I love that. My granddad used to take me up to Oswego on Lake Ontario, and I loved open wheel racing, Formula One and IndyCar. And guy goes, IndyCar? Well, you're the guy then. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, we just bought a license for IndyCar, and we got to send somebody out there. So what I had to do was they sent me to truck driver school because I had to drive a truck, a big truck. And they sent me to truck driving school. I got my CDLA and started working with the IndyCars in 96. And it was such a good gig. And at the time, I had kids going to college and I really needed a steady gig. And I'd gotten sick of, I'd have 3 weeks on a tour where I'd be saying, I don't have to worry about getting a gig. And then at the end of, the last couple of weeks, I'd have to be scrambling to find the next gig. They said they could keep me on and they could keep me employed year round and if I would take this gig. So I took the gig and they ended up doing it for about 2 years. Nice Man did, and then they realized that they weren't making enough money. So I went to CART to Champ Car, the Indy Car, and I said, "Well, if you want to take this in house, I know what we need. I know how much to order. I know how to set it all up. I know where all these tracks are. I know what the track deals are. Why don't you let me do it?" And they did. And then that worked so well that I've done a bunch of acts like that. So I went from IndyCar, um, did that for like 10 years, 11 years. And then the company got sold and the Indy cars and Champ cars melded back together, became one. I could have kept my gig, but they wanted me to move to Indy. so I could be in meetings at Main Gate all the time. Main Gate's a big auto racing merch company. I wasn't ready to move to Indy. So I started making some calls to all my rock and roll pals, and I just happened to hit my old buddy Bill Stone. He was bigwig at Nice Man Merchandising, and now he works for Harry Styles. He's got an in-house thing for Harry Styles and makes billions of dollars. But he, I said, I'm looking for a gig. You know of anybody that needs anybody? And he had just gotten hired by AEG to do the World Cup in South Africa, and he was going to be gone a year. He said, if you want this gig, I can hook you up with their business manager, see if you get along with her, and you can have it. And when I come back, we'll see where we're at, but I might need it when I come back. And I said, fine. And I made the call and did a little interview with them and they hired me. That's when I started working for REO. And that they're an in-house program. And so it's just me and the business manager. So I do all the art approvals, I do all the POs, I do all the projections, I do everything, and she collects the money. So everything, all the money goes back to her, and then she pays all the bills, and she pays me.
So Rick, are you do you do designing at all of anything? Are you in any kind of design
No, no,
role?
well, I have artists that I work with a lot, and they understand what I'm talking about. So I'm not an artist myself, but I know what I need and I know what I think will look good and what will sell. So I get with these artists. There's a couple printers that I use around the country, and then I tell the artists what I'm looking for, and then they'll do some mock-ups for me. And I'll say, no, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking this. Let's change this, make this happen. And that's how I did it for REO for a bunch of years. My first year was 2008. Um,
When you find something like, so let's say you approve something or you like the way something looks, what's your next step? Do you bring that to the band? Do you bring that to
yeah.
management?
Well, generally, yeah, the correct channel is you take it to the management first, and then they decide if the band should see it. Um, and it was that way for a lot of years. Toward the end of REO, I didn't have to do any of that. I just would go to Kevin and Bruce and say, "Well, here's what we're doing," and they would say, "Yeah, good. Tell Diane to pay the bills." So, and then Sammy was the same way. Sammy is the same manager as REO has, the same, not the same business manager, but the same personal manager. Um, Tom Consolo is a very important part of my career the past 10 years because he loved the way I did it for REO and REO loved it because it's not you're not paying a merch company to get to where you're splitting with the band. It's just you're paying me, you're paying Diane whatever her percentage was. That's the business manager. And then the band splits it up even and they make easily twice what they would make if they were working with a merch company. So Tom and I talked about it, and Tom went back to Sam, and Sam pays attention to his money. Sam's a very wealthy cat, and he's a very, very hands-on kind of guy. And Tom went to him and said, Rick does this for REO, and it's really working out well. And Sam called Kevin and said, how's this work out? And then they hired me to put together a program for them as well. So at one time I was doing REO and Sammy at the same time, trying to be on the road with both of them. But it's just a matter of knowing what I need and then convincing the band that that's what they need too. So once that happens, we're off to the races. It's just a matter of figuring out how much we need and we go.
Um, what do these big merch companies think of you? Do you ever have, you know,
Yeah, well, I took a break from REO in 2014, I think. We were out on the road with Chicago, the band Chicago. It was
Mhm.
a dual headline thing, and their merch program was a mess. Um,
That was a couple of years. That was a few years ago, right? Was that? Or
yeah,
you're talking? Yeah.
2014?
2014, I think. They they didn't know what to do with their merch. Their merch was a mess. So they hired this company, Epic Rights, which is Del Ferrano's company. Del's passed, but Del was a shit. He was started a bunch of good companies. He was instrumental in Brockham getting so big, instrumental in Giant getting so big, and he had this guy Bucky Bratton who he worked with. Bucky came out and to the Chicago thing, and he said, "Oh, you're out here. Well, why don't you just do Chicago too?" And I said, "Well, get your checkbook out and we can talk." So they hired me, and at that tour, I ended up doing both bands, Chicago and REO. And then Bucky, the guy that hired me to do Chicago, they were just starting this company, Epic Rights, with Del Ferrano, and it was they were getting a bunch of bands. And Bucky said, "Why don't you?" I had done Trickster for Bucky years and years before that. Trickster was a Giant act, and Bucky was with Giant. Um, so they just said, "Are you gonna? Can you can you come work for me instead of working for yourself, and it'll be easy for you." And we're gonna fold the merch guy thing into VIP and merch, and I can pay you twice. And you just got to figure out how to make it all work. And so I was one of the first guys that actually went out and did merch and VIP, which is very time consuming, but the money's good and it's kind of fun. I like screwing around with the customers like that. So I started doing that for them, and the next thing you know, REO's going to go out with Def Leppard, and I wasn't happy working for a company for all the reasons I told you before.
Mhm.
It's cumbersome and it takes forever to get anything done. So I knew that REO was going to go out with Def Leppard, and I said this might be my opportunity to bolt from Epic Rights. So I called Diane, the business manager. I said, I'm not married to Epic Rights. The problem we had was money. So if we could come to terms, I'll come back and work for REO. They paid me a lot of money, and I went back and started doing REO again. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how that worked out. And then at one time I was doing art, like I said, REO. I was doing REO, Sammy, and Tower of Power all at the same time. So
Give us, uh, tell us what was going on in your world a couple months before COVID, and then what happened when COVID hit. Did it impact
oh
you?
yeah, well, COVID. I was on the road with REO. Um, we were loading in up at Mystic Lake in Minnesota, and you heard about all everything going on.
Mhm.
Went down for load in. We got there the night before. We went down for load in that morning, and I noticed the truck wasn't opened yet. I said, "Oh, well, this because the merch guy always has to get merch returns are the last thing on the truck and the first thing off. So I always want to be there to catch my returns, secure them, make sure everything's cool." And the house manager came and said, "There's the governor just declared an emergency, and we're not going to be able to have this show." At the time they limited it to gatherings of less than 100 people. That was the first step that they took in
Mhm.
doing away with live events. And so we all flew home the next day, rather than we were supposed to be on the road for a month after that, but everything got canceled, and everybody went home.
Yeah, because right before um the whole COVID thing kicked off, Night Ranger had announced a tour with Whitesnake and
And
Sammy,
Sammy, yeah.
Yeah,
and
I was doing that too.
it was
We
supposed
would,
to,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that was huge. I was gonna do Sammy and Night Ranger,
Hmm.
and the White Snake people. I'd always almost convinced them to let me do them as well. And that would
Hmm.
have been huge. And I was really excited to do the tour.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I held out hope because Sam really, really wanted to do it. He was one of the first to come back after COVID.
Hmm.
We did shows in early 2021 in Florida with Sam. So yeah, it was terrible. No, I was home for 16 months. Stayed home 16 months.
That was, probably more than you'd probably stayed home in
Oh,
decades.
oh,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I was. The good thing is, I found out that I really like waking up with my wife every day,
uh-huh.
and I love my
Yeah.
house, love driving my own car, and um, that's making this retirement thing that I'm working on
Mm,
making happen. I'm really looking forward to it. So as I know I can actually handle being home.
yeah. Well, let's
Yeah,
let's.
COVID screwed everything up. It was I can remember reading the news, and Sammy didn't cancel that White Snake Night Ranger tour for a long time.
Mhm.
Really thought it was going to happen, and then all of a sudden they finally pulled the plug on it. But it was yeah, I was psyched for that tour. I did Night Ranger open for Sammy a couple summers before that, and so it's a really good fit.
Mhm. How did get into the story of, how, I guess, let me ask you, let's do this. What's your first memories of Night Ranger just as a fan?
As a fan,
Yeah.
well, I think MTV turned me on to him.
Hmm.
Um, I can remember my brother, who I've lost since then. We both loved Night Ranger, but he said, "Man, they got to change that name. The name is just too long. It doesn't look good."
Hmm.
I said, I disagree. I think it's a pretty cool name. So yeah, we got into Night Ranger early on,
Hmm.
the first couple records. And I just liked that. I thought it was a little edgier, a little harder rock than a lot of the hair bands.
Hmm.
And that obviously worked. They're still out there
Yeah.
kicking butt. And it's
Do you remember your first time crossing paths with them in like the business world, the merch world?
yeah, yeah, they did a tour where they were third on the bill with REO Sticks. Must have been 2010
10 maybe?
probably.
Yeah.
Um, and they were working with a pretty crappy little company out of San Francisco as their merch company. And their tour manager at the time was a guy that I did Trickster with for years and years, Todd Campasori. He's an
Hmm.
amazing guy. He's dead now, but he was one of my all-time great friends, Long Island guy, and he was tour manager Night Ranger at the time. And we saw one another. I said, "Oh my God, T-Boy, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, well, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm Mario's merch guy." He goes, "Well, that's good. Do you feel like handling Night Ranger as well?" I said, "Absolutely do. It's fantastic. I love Night Ranger." So that's how I first met him.
Hmm.
And I got to be friends. Joel Hoekstra was the guitar player at the time.
Hmm.
And Joel's stayed a friend. He's no buddy. He's a TSO guy now. He
Yeah.
plays with TSO and he plays in Whitesnake as well. But Joel's just a real. Have you ever met Joel?
Joel, we've had Joel on the
We've
pod.
had him on the podcast.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was,
Joel's just. I
yeah,
mean, what you see is what you get. He's
yeah.
just a fantastic, really, really cool guy, and
Mm,
I really, really enjoyed being around him. And Tracy Wiedemann was the tour manager at the time. She's an old friend of mine as well. She's now Styx tour manager. But they just said, we don't need to have a merch guy out. We'll just use Rick. So
mhm.
that's the first time I got to use them, or they got to use me.
So this, so talk about how you began this stint with Night Ranger and like what you do with them merch wise and just, how did.
Yeah, it's pretty simple actually. James came out, Jack's son James came out
Mhm.
when they were out with Sam. And James is always looking for an angle. He's really good at that. And I respect the hell out of him for that. He's just he cares about his band. And he saw me. I was handling it for this company, High Fidelity, out of San Francisco, that was doing Night Rangers merch at that time. And we just were I think we were in catering or something on the Sammy tour,
Mhm.
and he just started picking my brain a little bit, and he's asking me how it works with Sam, and do you think we could come up with some kind of plan like that? And I said, I'm kind of busy right now, but I could help you out if you wanted to go in that direction. And then I let it lay for a while. um, I think a couple years maybe. And then James just out of the blue called me and said, we were talking about doing this in-house thing and we think that you might be able to help us with that. Do you think you can? And I told him what it would take as far as money goes, and he said, done. So he hired me, and so now what I do for Night Ranger is I do all the projections, tell them what they need. I work with their art people. They've got this guy Talent who's worked for Live Nation for years and years. Tremendous guy, really, really, really good artist. Um, I just started working with them, with directing talent as to what I think we need. Then once we decide on designs, uh, have you met Julie, James's wife?
Not
She's
personally.
she's an old merch person, so she really knows her shit. So
Mhm.
she speaks
Yeah,
the language. Um, so I started just we two, me and Julie, just decide what we're going to go with as far as the product line
mhm,
goes. And then from there, I figure out, I do a projection, I know what shows, how tickets are selling. I know what we're going to need for each show. So I make sure that they're stocked. They got a warehouse in Appleton where Dave Radley has a shop,
mhm.
their production manager,
Yep.
and
Been
all
a
the
l-
merch lives there. When it's not on the semi, there's a little warehouse there, and I just decide what they need to have for each show. Angela, you've met, obviously,
mhm,
Angela.
mhm,
She's a peach. If I had three more Angelas, I'd be able to do anybody because she's
mhm,
just amazing. I create their settlement sheets. I advance the show so that the people, when Angela gets there, I do a little email I could show you someday
mhm,
that tells her who to go talk to, what the building deal is, what I expect we're going to do, uh, who the vendor's going to be. I have to arrange labor because Angela's running, Angela
mhm,
works during the show. So I advance everything as if I was going to be there. And then Angela just goes and checks it into the building, checks it into the guy that I've hired. And then at the end of the night, she just collects the money, gives it to Ed, and I get the settlement sheet back. I create the settlement sheet for the following show, and it works the same way every show. It's
mhm,
really, really a cool method, and I've done it. I'm doing the same thing for Loverboy as well.
mhm.
They like the way it worked. So
And have you been doing this for Night Ranger since then, continuously, or
yeah, I think I started doing Night Ranger in, well, I could look. I think it was 2000. Where are we now? We're 26. I think it was right after COVID, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Uh,
2021 or so, 21
yeah.
or 22. So it's been the past few years
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah, we've had like what I liked is, the Seven Wishes retro designs and,
Yeah, yeah.
all
Yeah.
that stuff. So, with what's the biggest change? I don't know, if it can be technology wise, fashion trend wise. What's the biggest maybe change in the merch world from 2025 to 1988? What?
Well, computers obviously have made
Hmm.
it a whole different ball game. When I first started doing shows, we had Nice Man had a sheet that was two carbon copies,
Hmm.
and you hand wrote every item and what the cost was, and then you figured it all out with a calculator, and then you put the bottom line number at the bottom, and then you made sure you had that money, and that was your show. That's how you did it.
Hmm.
Now, with Night Ranger, I use my own spreadsheets. They were using a thing called at venue, which is it's a huge deal now. Live Nation bought it, so they require all the Live Nation venues to use it. And if you don't get well versed in it, you get left behind. But yeah, computers and at venue have made the difference, a huge difference. The problem is people are coming out of college. They've never really done this before, but they know how to use a computer. So the problem is if I mean, I do everything by hand. If my computer takes a crap, or if for some reason that venue just falls off the earth, I could take a calculator and my little sheet that's got what I pulled for that day, take a calculator and that sheet, and I could figure out the show.
You have the backward you have the
I
background
could settle the
workings of it.
show.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a lot of these young kids, if they lose connectivity, they just look at their phone and they go, I don't know how to, I don't know how we're going to settle a show. And they don't. It's a nightmare. And they don't advance properly, kids these days. It's when guys my age go away, I don't want to be around. It's gonna be messy.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's enough of us around to keep it going for the next few years anyway, I think.
What about fashion trends? Is there something that sold well in the 80s that
Well,
uh,
nothing. I mean, you have to have your finger on the pulse of your crowd, and I think I do. You've always got to have a raglan. You've got to have a baseball tee of some sort because that's what we old folks expect to see at a show. And then the it's just reworking art. It's become a lot easier, and it's a lot of bands are hesitant to have ladies stuff. I like to always have a good couple of ladies pieces because there's a lot of girls that come to see Night Ranger. There's a
mhm.
lot of girls that come to see Sammy, so that's always made the bands a little more money than they expected. But as
I think in
far as
the 80s,
fashion
I
goes,
think in the 80s jerseys were bigger, the jersey
uh,
style.
yeah, yeah,
That's all you had, and you don't see much of those anymore.
yeah, yeah. Well, we always have one. We always have a baseball tee for Night Ranger, except for this year, we're gonna move over we're doing a really cool long sleeve. I think it'll be available online. I know it's being printed right now,
Hmm.
so I'm not telling tales out of school.
Yeah.
But instead of a raglan this year, we're going to actually do a really cool long sleeve, which will be really nice. And then we're doing, you always have to have a photo tee. Uh, Crowds love to see their city on the back of a tee.
Hmm.
That's a big, huge deal for a lot of people. So it's very important to make sure you get that right. But aside from that, I mean, you just I try to keep an eye on what girls are wearing, because that changes a lot. Guys wear black t-shirts, basically. So that's
Hmm.
long as you got a decent black t-shirt, you're all right.
What about non-shirts?
Well, there's always you got to have tchotchke. And none of that's ever changed. It's just a matter of getting decent designs. You need a good key ring, you need a good pin, you need a good sticker. Koozies are still, I can't believe people still buy them, but they do. Um, you always got to have a good hat, and you got to pay attention to what kind of hats are selling these days. A lot of kids want the flat brim things with the snapback, and that for years the snapback no one would buy them. They wanted a buckle back or a flex
Hmm.
fit. So now snapbacks are back in vogue. So you just got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. And it's pretty simple. Just got to keep your eyes open. And I know I have so many friends in the business. We all we that we, it's geeky, but this kind of stuff we talk about.
Um, One thing that gets brought up to me a lot, and again, now I'm surrounded by hardcore fans, so it's not your casual fan, but it definitely was a bigger thing in the 70s and 80s, and not so much now. I'd like to get your thoughts on tour books.
I've tried them a number of times, and they are good for the super fans. Super fans will buy them all day long, and then really old people will buy them because they're used to going to a play or something and getting a program. The problem with a tour book is to make them cost effective, you have to order 1,000 of them, and bands like REO and bands like Night Ranger don't have that many fans that are actually going to buy them.
Hmm.
Um, it's smart to periodically run one out there and make it a cool piece. You know, if you've got a big anniversary coming up, it's good to have a tour book that points that out. As long as you got good photos, and I mean
Hmm.
that gets cheaper all the while as well, uh, reproducing that kind of stuff. But yeah, tour books. I mean, I've got a shit ton of them myself, but it's like I said, the last few that I've tried to do, we tried to do a little one with Sam, didn't work.
Hmm.
We tried, got a pallet of them still back at Mates in LA for REO that'll never, they're, they're worthless. Um, yeah, it's just a matter of getting a good design, keeping the cost down. It's got to be $10. You can't be, you might
Yeah,
be
you
able to
can't.
get 20 if
Hmm.
it's a really nice piece, but you got to keep your cost at, a buck and a half, $2
Yeah.
so that there's a margin of markup there.
What
So
I noticed, Rick, is that a lot of bands now are doing posters.
yeah, yeah. And I agree with that. Posters are a good item.
The pro- the problem is, I mean, you can't carry a poster your whole
Can't.
show, and it's going to get damaged, and
Yeah, yeah. And if you start selling posters in tubes, it gets to be cumbersome. Buildings hate it. Buildings absolutely hate it. So if you want to dump 150 posters on somebody, they're going to have to count each one, and it's
Hmm.
um, I like them because if they're easy to truck.
Yeah, lightweight.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
can you can get a stack of posters like that, or
Yeah.
you
Oh.
can get thousands and thousands of them in the truck.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of damage. There's a lot of shrinkage. It's yeah,
Yeah.
posters are cool. I mean,
Mhm.
Foo Fighters make bank on
Yeah,
posters. They
I think
do.
is it Pearl Jam that does they like do limit like 150 for each show.
Yeah, Foo
Yeah, they do.
Fighters do that.
Yeah, or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I just remember like helping.
like for the show, you mean like it'll be
Yeah, and people rush to get them, and then they're
yeah, yeah,
worth. Yeah.
yeah,
We were talking about like weight and size, of merch, and I remember helping someone with merch probably 5 years ago or so, and Night Ranger had these bottle openers.
yeah,
They're about that size and metal. They look nice, but a small box weighed like a motherfucker. I'm like,
yeah. Of
it's
course.
like, and
Yeah, yeah,
if you're selling it online, you got to ship that. That's just
yeah, yeah,
what,
yeah, yeah,
I was like, um, like whose idea was this? Uh,
yeah.
so like
Well,
when,
somebody with big arms, obviously.
yeah,
Yeah, we always have to have you need that add-on stuff. You need
mhm,
the items that are 5, $10, especially t-shirts now are 45.
mhm,
So if you've got a $5 item, naturally people if you got a good vendor will say, well, this is $5, make it even 50, and they do it. So
mhm.
you got to have those tchotchke items. For this tour I got coming up in April,
Yeah,
we're going tchotchke heavy.
let's talk about that. So, there's a big reunion tour coming up
Yes,
this
yes, yes.
spring,
I've heard a little about it.
and tell
It's
us
going to
about
be a
that
big deal.
process.
Yeah, it's well, as luck would have it, Paul Dexter, he's a really good friend of mine, a brother of mine. He's he's REO's lighting director, and he's done everybody. He started out with Zappa. I mean, he goes back that far. Solid dude. He knows I'm a lighting guy. We always talk lighting. He slept right above me for 15 years, on the bus. He called me the other day, and I'd been hearing about this Triumph tour. And he did Triumph back in the day when they were the gigantic light show band.
Mhm,
And they hired him to do, it started out, it was just going to be a hologram thing. He did this really cool hologram thing for Dio. He was really good friends with Dio, and Wendy Dio is still one of his best friends.
mhm.
And they did a thing in Europe with a hologram thing for Dio. It's really, really cool. And the Triumph guys saw that and they thought, well, maybe we should do something like that. And so they talked to Paul about it, and Paul finally just said, why don't we just do a tour and I'll design a really cool light rig and we'll do that. And the band actually had a show that they played out in Edmonton or Calgary, someplace out west. where the three of them got together for the first time in a really long while, and it just sparked it. They said, "We're going to do this." So they're doing the Reloaded tour. That's going to be the Rock and Roll Machine Reloaded. They start out 10 shows in Canada, and then they come into the States and do 14 more there. Well, 16 now that they've added the two at the front end in Florida. So yeah, it's Triumph. Always been a huge fan. You know, being a Rush fan, you just normally naturally are going to be a Triumph fan as well. All my Rush buddies, they'd come to my house when I was a kid, and I'd put on my Triumph records just to screw with them. You know. But yeah, been a huge Triumph fan for all my life, and I found out through Paul Dexter who the merch company was. And come to find out, it's a company in Syracuse about 80 miles from my house. And we have a lot of friends that are the same. And the guy started picking my brain and he finally just said, "Well, what do you think about doing it?" I said, "Well, let's talk." And we came to terms. And so I get it. I mean, it's going to be a big, huge deal. It's going to
Hmm.
be it's selling very well. And I couldn't be more pleased. That's going to be a tchotchke heavy thing.
Hmm.
Gil is a huge tchotchke fan, so we'll have six hats. We'll have four key rings. You know, it'll be
You
magic.
can tell that by the documentary they recently had, where it was him in the warehouse and just showing
Yeah,
all the stuff he had.
yeah. He's yeah, metalwork. Um, yeah, I'm psyched to work with him.
Hmm.
Uh, one of the first shows I did with White Lion back in the 80s. We went up and there. I think Triumph was playing Port Jervis or someplace above the city, somewhere near Poughkeepsie or something. And White Lion got asked to open for him. So one of the first big shows I did with White Lion was opening for Triumph. They only let me have the front truss, the pricks, but it was it was a big, huge show. I mean,
Hmm.
and they're really, really good live. I'm psyched. They're doing they're having other musicians come out with them. So there'll be two drummers. So that way Gil can come down and you know he sings and drums on a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
So he's going to be able to come down front, sing the songs down front while the drummer is playing up there. Then Phil X is going to be out, Bon Jovi's guitar player. He was in Triumph for a little while when Rick left. Rick and the band split ways for a good long while. So Phil X is going to be there, and they're going to be, you know, trading off parts, and
Hmm.
you know, it's gonna make it sound full. And they even have a spare bass player who's in Slash's band, and so the guys from the drummer and the bass player from Slash's band, and then Phil X is from the Bon Jovi band. So should be big, should sound
Hmm.
amazing.
When does that kick off?
It kicks off, I think, April 10th.
Hmm.
April 10th in Florida. I think it's 10/12 in Florida. Then it starts at Sault Ste. Marie April 22nd, and then does the whole Canada, a couple of weeks in Canada. You go the Sault Ste. Marie, then the next show is Toronto, which is already 14,000 tickets sold. So, and then Hamilton, and then we go out east a little bit, and then we come all the way back and go out west and end
Hmm.
up in Calgary, I think.
Where
Yeah,
so
gonna be a big
where
tour.
where do you got any what's the future of Night Ranger merch look like? Is there any
We got some cool stuff coming. Right now I'm trying to get my second ladies piece out there. Like I told you earlier, we got the cool long sleeve that I think is going to sell well.
Mhm.
Take that slot that the Raglan will leave empty once I sell through those.
Mhm.
And then we got a new photo tee as well.
Okay.
I think we're going to continue on with the Seven Wishes. The, I think you're wearing it actually.
Yep.
That Seven Wishes on the back.
Mhm.
Think we're going to continue with that. I might put that on a charcoal blank just to change it up a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're going to stick with the new photo tee. It's they're using the same photo, but they've got instead of the guys being, last year's was they were all in a line. Now they're
Hmm.
stacked. So
Okay.
there's two guys behind, three guys in the front.
With
So
like tour dates on the back.
yeah, with all tour dates in the
Hmm.
back. So that'll
Yeah.
be a really good piece. That'll be our workout
Yeah.
horse.
Yeah.
Love the tour tees.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that should be a requirement. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you always should
Yeah,
have
back
a
in the day, you
yeah.
bought the shirt so you could say, "Hey, I was at
Yeah.
that show."
exactly,
Or
exactly. When I
or I my personal pet peeve is when there's concert shirts and there's nothing on the back. You
uh,
know, you know,
it's a cost saving thing. A
yeah.
lot of times, you don't want to date too much stuff because,
Well, I get the date, but it's
yeah,
my thing is, just me. It's like, my first
you're
thing.
not alone. You're
Yeah,
not alone. I like to have a couple of blank back shirts just so I can get more on the display.
yeah.
Ideally, we have nine pieces up there.
Hmm.
Uh, it's hard to do if you've got front back on nine pieces.
Yeah.
Ladies don't like stuff on their backs a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm out with Sticks a lot. Sticks always puts backs on their ladies' shirts, and it looks goofy because they got to shrink the art down. And then
Yeah.
a lot of girls just say, "Oh, it's got shit on the back. I don't want shit on my back." So we, I try to do most of my ladies' tees without a back.
Mhm. So what does the future hold for you?
Well, I think I'm looking to get out eventually. I had planned on just riding Oreo Speedwagon off into the sunset, but
Yeah.
if anybody that's pays attention to this kind of stuff realizes that that's probably not going to happen.
Hmm.
There's a nasty divorce that went on between the bass player and the keyboard player and the lead singer, and that's a three-person corporation. And two out of the three people have to make any decisions. They have to agree to make a decision, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to come to terms. There's band wives involved. Kevin's dug his feet in pretty heavy, and so has Bruce. Dowdy is the other person in the mix, but he doesn't. Neil doesn't give a shit. Neil's just the coolest, most down to earth cat on earth, and nothing bothers him. So Neil, whoever the last person Neil talks to is, that's who it's probably going to go with. And it just so happens that him and Bruce are really tight. Obviously, they're the rhythm section
Hmm.
for 30 years
Hmm.
together. Um, Neil just retired. Neil didn't want to go on the road anymore, and that's why he's not with the band anymore.
Hmm.
And he got a good deal. He was making money every week that the band played, and Bruce could have done the same thing, but he decided not to. So it's unfortunate. I really wanted to ride these guys off into the sunset, but it looks like I've got enough going on that I'll be 68 this year. So I don't need to really work that much more. I've
Hmm.
got everything I need. My house paid off. My car's paid off. I need money to buy shit for my grandkids. That's
Yeah.
about all there is to it. Feed me.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
I'll be around a couple more years probably, but not gonna be searching for work.
yeah.
This Triumph thing just fell in my lap, and once I heard about it, I had to have it. So I put a put a full court press on, and was able to secure the gig.
Well,
Has a lot of work been coming to you without you going out to it, like recently,
Oh yeah, yeah. I get a lot of people that want the business model that Sam has and that REO has.
without you reaching out to them? I mean, they've sought you
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I get a lot of people reaching out to
yeah.
me, want me to put together programs for them, and I just I've got these bands I've been with that deserve my attention.
Hmm.
They pay me, and I owe them. So I turn down a lot of work because of that. Um,
Dave.
any smaller band's going to want to do it the way
Yeah.
our Sam and Night Ranger do it because it's you're not you're not paying half the money to a merch company so they can have a big office in LA. It's just it's counterproductive.
Well, isn't the I know maybe like I mean I know it has to be smaller shows too. Like I remember seeing some bands are setting up their merch stuff outside the venue, like across
Yeah.
the street, so they don't have to pay the venue.
Yeah.
Like, what's,
Well, that happens. It happens. Yeah. I mean, buildings get a minimum of 20% these days. So, I mean, that's you got to build that into your cost of goods. It's yeah.
Have some guy with a van outside.
Yeah, well, a guy with a van outside, uh, a bootlegger, they don't have to pay anybody anything,
Mm.
but it's garbage. So
Yeah,
I discourage people from buying bootleg shirts. But yeah, yeah, I've seen that. They do like some of the bigger tours. This guy Bill Stone I was telling you about, he does Harry Styles, and they do a gorilla store in the town he's going to play uh, a week before the show. So they'll rent a proper store, they'll merchandise it just like a proper store, and the people can they open it, they advertise that it's going to open, and people come in and they get all their shit before they go to the show, and that seems to work really well. There's all these merch trailers that I used to use with the racing stuff, and I've seen those repurposed, and they park them across the street. And if you can get a town that's not going to make you buy a business permit for thousands of dollars, it's a good plan. But
Mhm.
if it's not authorized by the band and it's bootleg stuff, that's bullshit.
Mhm.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, this was I can't remember the band. I don't even know if it was a really well-known band. It was a newer band. And I think I was reading the article just like what it takes, to survive on the road nowadays. And, a lot of these smaller bands, they were talking about, the venues getting such a big cut of merch
Yeah.
that,
Well, yeah, that was a big thing a couple of years ago, and it's still a big thing. But Live Nation, who owns a lot of these
yeah,
little venues
yep.
now, depending on the size of your band, they've waived all building costs, which is a really cool thing to
Oh yeah.
do.
Mhm.
So I did a Tower of Power tour, a Christmas tour. We did a bunch of Live Nation little buildings, like the Magnolia and out near San Diego, a bunch of different ones. And they just say, no, we don't want anything. Here's your spot, go
Mhm.
nuts. So that if that happens, that'll prevent people from wanting to get around it somehow. But yeah, I mean, 20% for a smaller band, that's a big deal,
Mhm.
and you got to pay your taxes if you
Mhm.
do it properly, and then you got to pay a road guy. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
20% can be a lot. If you're playing Madison Square Garden, it's 30 or 35% now.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
got to bump up the price of your shirts. The fans are the ones that get screwed in the
Mhm.
end.
Yeah. Um, well, I appreciate you coming on the
Yeah,
podcast
definitely.
with us, sharing your
Well,
knowledge
I'm
and your
excited. I was excited
stories.
to
And
do it, Josh. I like talking with you, and it's Dave. It's good meeting
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Pleasure.
Well, we met, when I joined the band. I was helping with movements
Yeah,
middle of January in Indiana, and that's where I met you. And
yeah.
I, we were fighting over who wants to go get Rick. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you lost.
But
Simple.
no, so we had a schedule, with people coming in and okay, I got this block of time here. I can go get Rick, and I'd never met you. And, hopped in the truck, and next thing you know, man, we're talking Indy cars and kart
Yeah,
racing and Formula One and all kinds of
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And
All that shit.
so like I said, I was glad to get you on, and I'm really glad to have you on the Night Ranger, merch team because I've
Well,
been.
I'm happy to be here. I just signed up. James and I came to terms for this year, and
Mhm.
you'll have me for at least the next year.
All right.
Right.
Like I said, I've been enjoying the Seven Wishes stuff and the tour shirts and
Well,
um,
we'll have to make sure you get pieces of the new stuff as soon as they're
mhm.
available, Josh.
Yeah. Like I said, I always get the the email from Julie, with the
Yeah.
new stuff to put on the socials. So
Yeah, yeah.
right
Well, there you
there, we're
go.
like, all right,
Let me ask you one more question, Rick. Did you do the stuff for the final Japan tour?
No, I didn't. I wish I
Okay.
did. Yeah. That was some good looking stuff. There's some things I would have done differently, but yeah, it
Mhm.
was good looking stuff.
What about the just here I am trying to close the interview and I gotta the you can still rock an America black tee, like the
Mhm.
vintage one,
Yeah.
just tell a story of that. Where did that come from? Is that something
That was
that,
old art that we found. And then I've had Julie have it reworked.
okay.
Originally that was the matte part of it was a lot sharper, so I just had him distress the whole
Yeah.
thing, and it just makes it look like it actually came from 1984. It's
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that
I
does
like
well.
yeah, and I saw that and I'm like I liked it because
Yeah,
how what you have out there now isn't what it was in the 80s.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a new design kind of, but a vintage,
Yeah,
19
it's supposed to hit
mhm.
something subliminally
Yeah.
in your head
I mean
and make you have to have it.
yeah, 'cause I think I took that design and used it like on July 4th or something like that, just,
Yeah, yeah.
made it so. But
Perfect. Perfect.
all right, so listen, fans in motion, if you are out there on the concert tour thing and you're seeing Triumph, you're going to be on the road with them, right?
I am indeed.
All
I am
right.
indeed. I'll be at
Well,
every show.
you know,
Grab
make
me and
sh
say hi.
make sure you bring your credit cards, your cold hard cash,
Yes.
your
Well,
Take a
mostly
loan
credit
out. Yeah.
cards now. It's all Live Nation. It'll be
oh,
all credit cards.
he doesn't want cold hard cash,
No,
or in Canada, your $5 coins. Uh,
loonies in your
Loonies.
toonies.
um, but I appreciate you coming on and
No
showing.
worries. Anytime. I enjoyed the chat. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
All
All
right,
right.
buddy. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right. Have a pleasant rest of your day. All right.
You too, buddy. Thanks.
Come on, let's play him some off the very first album we ever did. Come on, Brad. Kick off Penny. Let's see what we got. Come on.